Good afternoon, or good morning, good evening, whenever you're watching this. Um, so there's a lot of news, a lot of exciting news around the NFL. This is one of my favorite times in the NFL because obviously the season is fun, obviously watching the games are fun, but this is almost like Madden, where you're like, oh, what if I put DK Metcalf on the Steelers, right? What if I put I don't know. What if I put Geno Smith on the Raiders? And that's what we've done. We've traded a third round pick for quarterback Geno Smith, right? I love this move. Okay. Um, you talk about the price for it, third round pick for just think about it, third round pick for a quality quarterback. I'll take it. Okay. Especially with the Raiders' lack of being able to have draft success, giving up draft capital for a player who we already know is good. We already know that is a quality starter at a position of need, at a position like quarterback, where it's so hard to find quality starters, is a great price. Okay, and I see a lot of people saying it's kind of an overpay. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Geno Smith is a good quarterback. Watch his tape from last year. He's a good quarterback. Um, he had a lot more weapons in Seattle. He had three very good receivers, a kind of decent running game, not the greatest running game, but a terrible online. And that was the biggest thing is he was pressured a lot. He was sacked a lot. He was sacked third most in the NFL, something like that. And you could tell. But I think that's kind of part of his game. He's an improviser. Who knows? I'm almost under the belief that when you got guys like Geno Smith, like a Russell Wilson, kind of getting them on their feet and getting them to improvise a little bit isn't the worst thing in the world. Obviously, you want to protect him. That's your guy. That's your quarterback. It's my quarterback. You want to protect him, right? But, letting him kind of run around the yard a little bit, make a man miss, see what happens. It's not a bad thing, right? A lot of his interceptions from last season, he had 15, which is pretty scary. But a lot of them came when he was under pressure. So if we protect him, I think we'll get a pretty good season out of him. If you think about it, like we traded Devontae Adams for Geno Smith, I don't love that. If you think about it, like Devontae Adams didn't want to be here, he didn't want to play for us, he was sitting on the bench, and we traded him, and we got Geno Smith. Okay, um, it's pretty good, right? Think about it like this. We traded a player who didn't want to be here, who didn't want to play, for a player who wants to play under this coach, who there was some contract breakdowns between him and the Seattle Seahawks, and a lot of Raiders fans had like kind of came out and said like, "Oh, well, look, he wants to play for the Raiders." I don't think so. I think he wants to get paid. I think the Seattle Seahawks said, we don't really want to pay you that much. You're kind of old. We're also they're in a weird time where they have this old quarterback who's in his prime, but he's not that good enough to get them to the Super Bowl, maybe the playoffs if they really tried. But I think they're trying to kind of start a new regime, get a little youth movement going on to build it into a contender. Um, so part of me believes he wanted to come to the Raiders. Part of me believes he wants to get paid, and it could have been both of those things. And if the Raiders are willing to pay them, then he wants to come here, wants to play there, and he should get paid. He's a good quarterback, right? And people are saying we're going to overpay for him 45 million dollars. That's not an overpay. That is a mid-level quarterback contract in the year of 2025. The salary cap goes up every year, just about every year. Quarterback contracts are going to go up. Quarterback contracts can go up. Whenever we have and whenever we had a guy like Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ridder taking snaps for us last year, I'll pay a quarterback $100 million to get out there. I'll pay a good quarterback $100 million to get out there and play for me. Okay, that's an exaggeration. That's a joke. Okay, but it's not an overpay, right? Um, but a big thing that I like about Geno Smith that he provides is he takes a lot of weight off this front office shoulder because this whole offseason and last year and last offseason, what was the question? It was quarterback. Who's going to be the quarterback? How are we going to get a quarterback? Are we going to pay some guy in free agency? Are we going to go to the draft? And if we want to go through the draft, we're probably going to have to trade unless we're hoping that Shedeur Sanders falls or a Cam Ward falls to 6 or a Jackson Dart falls to 37. But that's a lot of hoping, right? And What Geno Smith provides is, like I said, he provides a kind of relief. The quarterback is now not an immediate need for this team. He's getting older, he's aging, and he's not the best quarterback. So obviously, he's not the quarterback of the future. I think he's got two or three good seasons with us, really good seasons with us, and then we'll really start to have to look for his replacement. But what that gives us is 2 to 3 seasons of kind of breathing room to allow us to make a smart and focused decision on quarterback. If Shadur Sanders falls to us at 6 this year, we say, okay, we take him. That's our successor. That's the quarterback of the future. While we let Geno Smith, you know, play this whole season, and then maybe next year he plays half, Shadur Sanders plays the other half. However, they work it out, right? But they've got their quarterback. Or if Jackson Dart's there at 37, okay, take that guy. Okay, if both of those guys are not there, or we don't like those guys, okay, because I don't think we need to take a quarterback just because we need a quarterback. Go best player available. If there's a guy that you know is going to be a good starter, don't skip over him because, oh, but we need a quarterback. No, I want to win football games this year. Okay. Uh, and I feel like reaching for a quarterback has maybe not hurt us because we haven't been in the quarterback search for that long, but it's proven to hurt teams in the past where you reach for this quarterback when you should have went with a guy who would have improved the team as a whole. But that I'm kind of getting carried away. That's the best thing about him, right? We need a quarterback. We got our quarterback. We still need a quarterback of the future, okay? But right now, we don't have to worry about the quarterback next season. We got our quarterback next season, okay? So we have another season, 2 seasons to start worrying about the quarterback. Um, but we're getting into free agency, okay? We have some free agents, and I put out a video about a month ago about 5 free agents I wanted the Raiders to bring back. Malcolm Coots, Robert Spillane, importantly, I should have saved him for first or last. But big emphasis on Robert Spillane, Trayvon Morig, Adam Butler, and or John Jenkins, and then Nate Hobbs. Okay. Spoiler alert. Um, three of those 5 guys have gone to other teams. But we got Isaiah Palomalo, right? We re-signed him on a very cheap contract, a kind of prove it deal for this young player who I thought shined a lot last season. There's some guys who just have a knack for the ball, right? I felt like every time a play was being made, he was there. He was around or at the ball, right? He had a couple fumbles. Really physical tackler, really good guy, really quick guy, young guy that I think can develop into a very solid safety for us for years to come. Okay, second guy, Gardner Minshew. He's going to get released, right? He's just not good. Bye bye. Um, no hate or nothing, Garner. Love you, man, but you're just not good. Um, Alex Kappa, okay, he sucked last year. He sucked, and we got him on a 2-year contract. It was like 11 million about. That is not a bad contract for a guard. He was not good, okay, but he was a starting guard in the NFL, okay, and there's what 64 of those in the league, okay, so worst case scenario, he's starting for us at guard. Um, best case scenario, he's good and he's starting at guard. Worst case scenario, he sucks, he's starting at guard. Very worst case scenario, I, he could start, he could be on the bench, he could suck, he could not. We didn't give that much capital up for him, right? And if he's cut, it's not that much. Big one right here. Adam Butler re-signed. Okay, love this guy. Love this guy. We got him on a 3-year contract. I think we got him for a steal, right? What did he get? Does it say what he got? It's just 3-year deal. We got him on a steal. 3 years for this guy. He's a solid rotational D end. Could start for us. I think a big thing about him is he's an obvious kind of pass rush D tackle. I think he has a lot better ability to get to the quarterback than he can stopping the run. But I think you need those guys. You need rotational guys. Get him in there in obvious passing situations, and obviously just get him in their rotation, right? I love Adam Butler, love this signing. Andre James to be released. To me, this kind of I feel like we're not even saving that much money, but I feel like it was more so. Um, we feel like we could get better inside offensive linemen than centers coming up in this draft. And free agency. Um, so move Jackson Powers Johnson to that center position, which kind of allows him to be that leader of the offensive line, be right there in the middle, which I think is perfect. I think he is a great offensive lineman. I think he is a leader of men. I think he is going to, kind of put this little unit on his back. Him and Colton Miller would be the really, kind of cornerstones of that line for years to come. And we're going to be able to find those two guards. Maybe not tackle. I like DJ Glaze. I think we should give him a shot. But this is the big one. This hurt my little heart. Robert Spillane. If you don't know, my first name is actually Robert, right? So we're basically the same guy. Which I was getting paid like him though, because the Patriots threw him a bag. I think it was like 33 years, 37 mil. Um, I really wanted him back, and I was fine with overpaying for him. If you would have said I can get Robert Spillane on a 3-year, 37 mil contract, I would say bye bye, Rob. Love you, bud. Love you, bud, but not for 37 mil. Okay. The Patriots threw a bag at him, okay? Um, and he's a great player. He earned it, right? He's worth I'm not gonna say he's worth every penny, but they had a lot of money to spend. They said, you know what, we're gonna get us a little linebacker, right? And I'm excited to see what he's gonna do in a Mike Vrabel, led team, Mike Vrabel defense. Um, and it hurts because he was a leader of the defense. He was, I would say, our second best player behind Max Crosby, and he was that quarterback of the defense. But let me save my butt for this next one, and maybe the one after too. Same thing, Trayvon Merrick, Panthers. I thought he was really coming on strong last season, and I think he was starting to develop into a decent safety. I think his first couple years in the league, it was a bit disappointing. I was a bit disappointed in him, but he was playing on that line of scrimmage. He was a great run defender. He left a little bit to be desired in the past, but he was a big physical player. I love Trayvon Merrick, right? Panthers once again, do him a bag. Okay. Um, Let me not skip too far ahead. But spoiler alert, Nate Hobbs too. He also left. I think same thing with him. I think he was a great player. Great story. Would love to have him back. Go get that bag, buddy, because you're not getting it over here. Okay. Um, Guys like linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks, are it's important to have good skill players, right? But it's also important to have good schemes that you can kind of plug those guys into, and you can have guys like a Robert Spillane who comes over, on a little prove it deal, that can work well in the scheme. Um, Trayvon Morrig, I think, great player. He was great in the scheme. And I think that really kind of inflated his value, inflated Robert Spillane's value, inflated Nate Hobbs' value. And I think there's teams who have that cash and are ready to spend it and want to spend it on these guys, and all the power to them because they are good players, right? But a big thing is the scheme. Okay, it's gonna depend on the scheme that you put them in. I think that if you have a good scheme, it is easy to replace players. So when you get a guy like Jeremy Chin, who I can't believe we got him, this was a insane contract for Jeremy Chin because I think he's a baller. I love Jeremy Chin. Ever since he was drafted, I've been a Jeremy Chin fan, and we got him for cheap, right? And is he as good as Trayvon Merrick? I would argue, yeah. I would say he was on the same caliber. He's on the same caliber of Trayvon Merrick, same kind of idea, big physical safety. Um, but it's all about scheme, right? Trayvon Merrick leaves, and instead of paying him this big contract, putting on this draft capital at this position that we can replace, what do? We say, okay, well, we can replace this. We can moneyball this. We can replace this in the aggregate. No, I'm just kidding. But the idea, it's the same with let's see, Nate Hobbs, obviously. Um, Landon Roberts, same kind of guy. A lot of people on Twitter were like, as I was getting ready for this, some guy on Twitter said, "Oh, well, Roberts is a better player than Spillane anyway, so we'll be fine." I don't think that's true. I think Robert Spillane is a better player than Landon Roberts, but I think what they do is very similar, and I think Landon Roberts can play at a similar level to Robert Spillane. They're both run stoppers who kind of are lackluster in the pass defense, right? But I think that in a Patrick Graham defense, I think the linebackers have a heavy emphasis on the run. So he fits our scheme perfectly. And he came over on like a 1 year, $3 million deal, really cheap. Um, Once again, it's gonna next season we're gonna have to re-sign him or pay him whatever. But these guys are replaceable, right? Um, and all of this is kind of um, theory because they could come out and Trevor Moore could have a great year. Nate Hobbs could have a great year. Robert Spillane could have a great year, and these guys can suck. And we say, oh, well, we should have better players. But I think what we're doing is very smart. Um, Malcolm Kuntz, $12 million is a bit rich for my personal taste. But I think it's respectful for Malcolm Kuntz because I think he was due for a big payday, right? If he would have played last year, I think he would have gotten paid this year. Okay. Um, but he had about half a season where he was really just let loose and he was really came into his own and was a very solid pass rusher, very very good defensive end. Um, and then he got hurt. And people are saying, oh, well, we shouldn't pay him this much because he only had half a season of production. I feel like he's been neglected most of his career, right? Like his first year, I remember he had like one of his like first snaps, first 5 snaps or something, he got a sack. I think it was against the Commanders, right? And I was like, where has this guy been? Why haven't we been playing him? And then um I feel like Josh McDaniels kind of had a grudge against him. I don't know why, but I remember there was a video of Malcolm Kuntz like batting a ball down or like kind of roughing up Derek Carr at practice, and he was like cussing out Kuntz, and maybe that's it, right? But I feel like Antonio Pierce really just let him loose. Said, you're that other end next to Max Crosby, go get it, man. And he balled out, and then he got injured, and then now he's due for a pay grade, and all he has is this kind of half of the season to really sell himself on. But I think he's gonna be great next year. I think he's gonna be really good. Um, Glad to have him back. Really glad to have him back because I feel like defensive line are guys where you got to get talent on that defensive line. Talented defensive line can make up for a lackluster secondary. The same cannot be said about a secondary. Um, but we start getting into players like Lonnie Johnson, like I said, a Landon Roberts. These guys aren't big splash signings. This is depth. This is depth for this team. These are cheap guys. These are guys who are gonna compete, or at the very least, with Lonnie Johnson, gonna be just a special teamer, or just provide rotational depth. And I am fine with that because something that has plagued the Raiders for 20 years is our inability to draft, our inability to sign free agents, and our inability to create a deep team, a team that is going to last. Because every year, we get decimated with injuries, and then we got a practice squad player out there at safety. We got a practice squad cornerback or somebody. We're not signing these Trayvon Merrick to this big deal, and that it sucks because he's a good player. But what we need is a group of top to bottom a good team. Okay, there's 53 men on a roster. We need 53 good players, right? And I feel like that's what we're doing is we're being smart. We're not overpaying. We're building out this roster that for a while has lacked depth. Okay, and that's what these little cheap contracts are. Is yeah, you hear like, oh well, you're getting out bargain bin contracts. You're gonna get bargain bin production. I see where you're coming from, but also I feel like it's more so about finding value, finding good value. A guy like a Landon Roberts, right? A good player who the Steelers feel like is maybe expendable. And we say, okay, yeah, you're a bit, he's cheap. he's good. He does this one thing really good. Okay, we're gonna put him in that position that he's gonna be successful in. Um, this one is mind-boggling. Divine Diablo. Hey, Divine Diablo fan, right? I was. I thought he was going to be the next big thing, right? I thought he was going to be a Travis Kelce killer, bro. Um, just wasn't that good. He's just not that good. Just not that good. And he got a little bag from the Falcons. Good for him. Eric Stokes, a guy who I think is a solid corner in this league when he's available. Once again, this is a guy, I think we got him again on a 1 year, $4 million contract, right? It's not bad. Little depth signing. Cornerback is a position of need for this team, I believe. And if he's healthy, he will be a solid starting corner on this team. If not, it's $4 million. That's not that crazy. Which kind of leads me into what I want to talk about. I said so. Now we got the quarterback. That was Geno Smith. So what is the biggest need on this team? Okay. Um, a majority of people said running back. Um, I agree. I agree. I think the running game really hurt us last year. Our inability to run really hurt us last year. Um, and I think the kind of lack of running back talent also hurt us. Had we had a guy like Josh Jacobs in the backfield, a talented running back, I think he still would have struggled, but he would have provided more of a pop from that running back, from that running game that we were really missing because it was like when the pass wasn't working, we go to that run game and wasn't much, helping us there either. Um, I don't think we should be giving out a huge contract. I don't think we should be drafting Ashton Genty at number 6. Um, but I think sign a running back in free agency, a veteran running back with experience, a talented running back. The Cowboys got Javonte Williams, who I'm a big fan of. I wanted the Raiders to sign him actually for like $3 million, right? And even if he just becomes a rotational back, that is a solid running back in your running back room that you can rely on. Um, and we still got guys like Samir White, Alexander Madison on the roster who I'm just not a big fan of. But guy like Sincere McCormick, I think it would be smart to give him some burn this year, right? I think he's earned it. I think he with the lackluster offensive line last year had a pretty decent showing when he was healthy, and then he got hurt. Um, one area of need that I think is definitely well, obviously kind of not addressed or recognized is wide receiver. I don't think we need a number one wide receiver. I think Brock Bowers is a number one wide receiver, and I think Jacoby Myers makes a great number 2 for him, right? But I think giving us another solid third option, giving us especially at that X wide receiver position is going to help us a lot. But getting a veteran, kind of cheaper veteran, even if it's a guy like Stephon Diggs, who's kind of in the latter half of his career, not as productive as he once was, but is still going to take some of that attention from the defense and is going to share a significant offensive load would be smart. And then once again, cornerback. I think that's a position that we need to address in the draft. I would love if we addressed it at least another time in free agency just to give us another solid veteran option to really round out that room. Um, but I'm also excited to see Jacorian Bennett. I'm excited to see a Jack Jones. I'm really excited to see a DeCam Richardson in um, this defense that they should be familiar with Patrick Graham. But in a Pete Carroll led kind of version of that, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? But Raiders fans are not too happy, guys. They're not too happy. Put up this tweet, this little meme. And what I'm seeing is Raiders fans mad that we got a quarterback like Geno Smith, mad that we're not paying these big names in free agency. And what I'll say is the big thing about Geno Smith that I'm seeing is people are saying he's old. Well, he's not. He's only 34. Okay. He's still got years left in him, right? And like Pete Carroll, I think, wants to build for the long term. He wants to set this team up for success. But I also think he wants to win now. He's an older guy. He's not trying to, sit through this long, quarterback um chronicle of this guy who's going to mold and shape into the perfect quarterback. He wants a guy who's going to win now. And if he gets a guy like Shadur Sanders who he's able to develop into that successor, great. But he also wants to win now. Okay. And I don't blame him. I want to win now. I want to watch competent football. I don't want to watch Gardner Minshew. I was in an argument with a guy on Twitter the other day who said, we should just roll out Gardner Minshew there for another season and lose every game so we get a top quarterback or a top draft pick so we can get a quarterback. Buddy, we've been losing for 20 years and we still ain't got that quarterback, bud. What I would like to do, right? Because the Super Bowl is the ultimate goal. Super Bowl is the ultimate goal of every fan, every player, every coach, every organization, right? But for 17 weeks in the fall and into the winter, I want to sit on my couch after a week of hard work. I want to sit on my couch and I want to watch a competent football team. Is that too much to ask? Is that too much to ask? Derek Carr was a mid quarterback, but he always put out a competent showing for the most part, right? He had some pretty bad showings, but he also had some pretty great ones. So, on average, right? I just want to see a football team that's going to compete. I don't want the Atlanta Falcons game from last year scarred me. I don't want to see quarterback play like that ever again in my life. Okay. And if that means that we are a 8 to 10 win team for the rest of my life, that's fine. That is fine. That is fine. Okay. Because I would just like to watch competent football for a majority of the year. That's all I'm asking. Okay. And going into that, I think Pete Carroll wants to win now, but I also think he wants to set us up for success. That is what these signings are about, right? He's not overspending on guys. He's not paying these guys these crazy contracts who are ultimately not going to live up to the value of that contract. He is providing this team with depth. He's providing this team with a stable base so that we can build a good team on top of it, right? Because if we have these solid veterans that we can rely on and the rookies that, could develop, I think that's going to ultimately lead to winning. And a big thing one thing I want to leave off on is a lot of people complaining because we're not doing much in free agency, but free agency is not where you build your team. Free agency is not where you build your team. Free agency is where you add that little cherry on top of that team, right? That's where the Eagles, they add that little Saquon Barkley in there, right? They get that guy, that one missing piece because they're going to go on a run this season. The Raiders are not going on a run this season. Okay, so we have no business. We have no business giving Robert Spillane $37 million. We have no business giving Nate Hobbs $48 million. Right? We have no business giving a a guy like Chris Godwin $20 million a year. Right? These are the top spenders in free agency last year, and we're just gonna kind of look at how things panned out for them. Right? First off, New York Giants. They sucked last year. They were bad. They were not good, right? They signed a guy like Devin Singletary, 3 years, $16 million. Not a bad contract, but you're paying a running back, this money and who's kind of on the latter end of his career. They just guy like Brian Burton's 5 years, $50 million, right? Which I think that's really not a terrible contract. But it doesn't result in wins because there are fundamental issues on that team that can't be fixed with throwing a guy like Brian Burns a big contract, right? Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, there are big spenders in free agency. A lot of them are guys like Chris Jones, um, keeping guys, keeping their own guys, right? These guys that are not a lot of these are guys who are new, who are gonna totally reinvent this team. Who do they sign? Irv Smith, tight end depth. Okay. These are depth guys. These are guys they're just keeping their core together, right? Drew Tranquil, they're keeping that core together. And they had a good season. They had a great season. Atlanta Falcons. The biggest one really is Kirk Cousins. Okay. And it didn't work. It didn't work. Like it's that simple. Um, they're probably going to try to trade or at least release him the next couple of years. Darnell Mooney, I think that was a good signing. It was. I don't know if he's worth 3 years, $39 million. That's a pretty decent contract for him. But he's also a solid receiver. I think that was a smart pay for them. Um, getting a guy who's going to make the job easier for Kirk Cousins, going to make the job easier for Michael Penix. That's not a bad that's not a bad contract, but once again, it's not really translating into wins, into success. They didn't even make it in the playoffs. Carolina Panthers, right? They really try to revitalize that offensive line, and it kind of worked, but this is the thing, right? Is it kind of worked, but they gave Robert Hunt 5 years, $100 million, right? When you are paying free agents, it is in the nature of free agency that you're going to have to overpay, right? And since you're overpaying, you're not going to get the value that translates, what you should get out of $100 million, you're not gonna get, right? But you have to overpay this guy because you're asking him to come to your team. You are, you're asking him to uproot his life, come to this new organization, come to this new team, learn all this new schemes and everything. Um, and you got to pay him for it, right? And so it worked, but once again, it's not translating into wins. Um, our guys, who's that? Las Vegas Raiders, number 5. Um, Guy like Amir Abdullah, not a bad signing. The big fat one is Christian Wilkins, right? And a guy like Andre James. I actually didn't realize that we gave him 3 years, $25 million. I'm gonna be straight up. That was not a good contract. Um, in hindsight, looking back on it, I don't think it was a mistake, but hindsight's 2020. I would like to have that contract back. Um, Christian Wilkins, once again, a guy who I like the Christian Wilkins signing. We did overpay for him. We did overpay for him, but we needed a defensive tackle. We got a defensive tackle. His production was not worth 4 years, $110 million last year. But at least we had the assurance that we're gonna have a solid defensive tackle for years to come. But once again, I don't think he's gonna live up to this contract. Okay. Um, that's just the nature of giving out big contracts. Is you're overpaying for this name, you're overpaying for this guy who is ultimately probably not going to give you what the contract is worth. Um, Buccaneers, a lot of these are re-signings, keeping that core together, which I'm not mad at. Um, Jacksonville, Gabe Davis. You look at guys like Gabe Davis, Devin Duvernay, Ronald Darby. They just didn't don't work out. Um, the kind of common theme in this is either guys are being re-signed to contracts, um, and that's why you're paying your guys, you're keeping your homegrown guys, and that's why you're spending so much, or you're spending so much and you're having to reach. It's like reaching in the draft. You're having to reach, and you're not getting the level of production out of these guys for what you're giving up. And ultimately, Um, I think that if you are a Philadelphia Eagle, if we went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, we can get back there, right? We have our quarterback, we have our offensive line, we have our defensive line. All we need those, Saquon Barkley, that pop out of the backfield, right? We need who did they sign? Devin White. They think they released him. See if they're on here. But they know that they're actually not. Wow. They know they are close to a Super Bowl. They just need that little topper, right? And so if you are mortgaging your future, same with draft capital, like the Los Angeles Rams did, right? If you're mortgaging your future because you know that this season you are probably going to be able to compete for a Super Bowl, I think it's fine. I think that is a smart decision. I think the Raiders are not in the position. to say, let's go get a Super Bowl this year, right? They need to build up some chemistry in this team. They need to build up depth in this team. They need to build up a winning culture in this team. Set this team up for success for years to come and not mortgage the future of this team who is not that good right now. Okay. And it's ultimately going to set them back in a couple of years. I think these smart, small depth signings are what we need, and I'm very excited what this front office has done so far in free agency, and I'm very excited to see what's to come. Um, yeah. Let me know though. Are you wanting a guy like a Stephon Diggs? Are you wanting, you know, maybe the Packers release Jair Alexander? You wanting to throw a little bag at him? Just let me know, you know. Thank you for watching once again. Thank you for listening to me rant about the Raiders for I don't even know how long I've been talking. Bye.